Calling to order this regular meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I will look for approval of our agenda. Melissa?
I move approval of the agenda with the HC addendum.
Second.
We have a motion from Melissa and a second from Nimal. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. Next, we move to recognition of the audience. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public on topics included on tonight's meeting agenda. If there is a topic an individual would like to address with the board that is not on the agenda, we invite those to be shared with board members via email, phone, or the form available on our website. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and home school district for the record. The board values and welcomes courteous, respectful, and civil behavior from all speakers and people attending the board meeting. The board expects speakers to limit statements to those relating to the operations of the board and refrain from comments of a personal nature unrelated to the operation of the board. Obscene language and disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. The board requests speakers to not be defamatory, abusive, harassing, or unlawful. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. This evening, one speaker has signed up to address the board. Each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Upon conclusion of the allotted time, a chime will sound and the speaker is asked to conclude. If necessary, a final chime will sound 15 seconds later, signifying the end of the speaker's time at the podium. I will now call our first speaker to the podium, and that is Katie Love.
Do I have to start this? Hi, my name is Katie Love, and I'm a teacher at Ben Franklin Middle School. Hi, my name is Katie Love, and I'm a FACS teacher with Fargo Public Schools. This is my 23rd year of teaching, with 19 years of those being 8th grade FACS teacher in Fargo Public Schools. I'm here tonight to address the new schedule change, and I hope you will consider keeping FACS as a required class in 8th grade, where 91.8% of 8th grade students at Ben Franklin are currently taking this class. With the new schedule, FACS will no longer be a required class for 8th grade. Instead, it will be replaced with a high school readiness career class. One of my concerns with this new class schedule is they want to implement a class that does not have a curriculum set in place. The biggest question I have is, what will the curriculum be? 8th grade FACS currently has a career unit where we cover basic job skills such as job applications and how to have a successful interview. We practice communication, eye contact, verbal and nonverbal skills. I have students who go to a job interview and come back and say, Mrs. Love, I got the job. It was just like what we did in class. We teach things that are relevant to their everyday lives and they can use them now. We go over money skills and some future planning with careers with the students. We also address the importance of healthy cooking, eating, and nutrition. At parent-teacher conferences in the fall, I had 14 parents come one night, and out of those parents, 10 of them made a comment to me that their child is cooking so much more at home. Their confidence has grown in the kitchen, and I finally feel like I can trust them in the kitchen. We give kids the confidence they need to go home and cook in the kitchen with their family. They learn how to make healthy choices, cook from scratch, and of course, measure with their heart. Daily FACS, learning skills that help prepare them to be on their own. Some of the most memorable labs we do is the homemade Nuffla soup, with of course our homemade Nufflas, banana muffins, homemade pancakes, and of course our fan favorite of our spaghetti bistro, where the kids get to show off their skills and invite another adult into the school to come in and dine with them. They gain confidence, build teamwork, time management, how to clean, and of course, basic food skills they can carry with them throughout their lives. If your child has gone through 8th grade at Fargo Public Schools, I'm sure you have heard some of these wonderful things we have made. FACS is a unique experience that no other class in 8th grade can give the students. I have students tell me, I didn't want to come to school today, but I was excited to cook in your class, so I came. FACS provides a much needed opportunity for students to feel successful, especially when they don't always feel successful in their traditional and academic classes. It would be a disservice to our students who don't have room in their schedule to take a FACS class. I hope you consider keeping 8th grade FACS as a required class and allowing all students to continue to learn important life skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next, we will move to reports, and President Haugen Christensen is here. Welcome.
Hi. So I've got a couple of FEA shout out celebration things. FEA Educators of the Month for November, December, we've got some corporate sponsors, so we're able to give a little cash prize as well from Davies High School. Crystal Towers, she's an ERLA in the library, and she's the advisor of the Little Rock Society. From South High, math teacher of multilingual learners is Heather Kinkle. So they make us look good, they make us proud. They're too bad we can't just give them the award every month. But we're going to try to do it every month instead of every 2 months. So keep your eyes open for that. In early December, FEA did a fundraiser for FEA scholarships. It was Athleisure Week, which I have to tell you, the elastic waists in the week after Thanksgiving, I donated extra. FPS staff raised over $1,400 for FEA scholarships. And here's South High for you. The top school in terms of donation was South High, who raised over a fourth of that total. So, a little over a year ago, well, it would have been November. I was fairly new serving as FEA president then. I noted that we all need to work together because that was the only way we're going to be successful in these uncertain times. I now understand that there's something scarier than uncertain. And that's when it starts to feel certain that this is indeed where we are. I'm working really hard on myself to not capitulate into that kind of dread and worry, and I know thousands of my friends and colleagues are working on that too. We will and we must find strategies to pull together, help our kids and our staff and our families feel safe, support and celebrate our communities, to teach and to learn. We cannot allow ourselves to accept anything else, and I do feel certain you believe that too.
Thank you very much, Laura. We will next move to our administrative report from Dr. Steiner.
Thank you. Few celebrations or shout outs for FPS. Melissa DeMol, Ben Franklin, teacher in CTE, received her national board certification just recently. Tyler Hetland, who is a PE teacher at Explorer Academy, was recently named the Central District Adapted Teacher of the Year. He will actually go on to the national finals now in that. And then we received word yesterday, Davies and Fargo North were given bronze recognition and noted in the 2025 AP Honor Roll. You might say, great, what does that mean? I had to look that up too because I wasn't exactly sure. It basically, there's three things. One is college culture. So 40% of the graduating cohort, so that senior class, had to take at least one AP exam during high school. 25% or more of the graduating class had to score a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam during high school. And 2% or more of that graduating cohort took 5 or more AP exams during high school, and at least one of those exams was in the 9th or 10th grade year. So again, that's a wonderful honor for those schools. And I did share, I think, earlier this year, AP scores across all 3 comprehensive high schools are quite fantastic. So I think that's a nice celebration. If you had a chance last week, Jaden Sandbeck is a student right now in the virtual academy. He was presented with the Sanford Ambulance Citizens Life Serving Award. Yeah, look back through the Forum Valley News Live, watch the story. Truly, I got a chance to go over with the principals, Mrs. Herrick, Mrs. Fichtner, and see that ceremony. If you don't think our kids are changing the world, just watch that and put that thing on repeat, because that's what happens. Not only changing the world, but saving lives while they're doing it. Truly remarkable young man who was so humble, who's standing beside his dad, whose life he saved, and whose dad was so proud. So we don't always have those positive moments right in front of us, but this is one of those examples. We should be proud, and we have lots of great students, but here's a great example of someone who changed the world, not only of his immediate family, but all those that come in contact. So take a look if you haven't had a chance to read that.
Dr.
a couple-
Steiner?
Yes.
I think it's important to note that Jaden attributes knowing CPR to seventh grade health class.
Mrs. Goldman,
Miss
I
Goldman
believe.
at
Yes,
Discovery. Yep.
yeah, that was one of the things he said is, I couldn't remember all the stuff, but I remembered enough that when the paramedics shared it out on the phone, I could get there and do that. So, when we talk about curriculum that's relentlessly relevant, I think that's really, really important. Couple other updates. I've started listening sessions for our development of our portrait of a graduate. I've met with VA students, Dakota and Davies. I'll finish all the high schools in January and then go to the middle schools in February. So we'll have a wealth of information. Had a lot of good feedback already. Look for in a couple weeks, we'll have a cool little press conference with MSUM and West Fargo schools about a scholarship opportunity that's going to come for our students, and what MSUM is going to do for them. It's going to be a really wonderful opportunity. As I shared earlier this year, we did many EBR listening sessions. I think we had 14 of them Dr. Gross and I met with. We've released out to the teachers the feedback from that and our next steps, and we have some concrete steps of how we're going to adjust our grading and reporting systems to, one, make sure that it's a fair and accurate representation of what a kid does and does not know, and to also make sure it's a understandable system that our parents can use as a way to be involved in the learning process and the teaching process, and a system that our teachers feel very comfortable that they can clearly articulate what it means for kids. So we're making some adjustments on that. And then the last thing is we have our final, I put that in quotes, budget meeting where we're working through our reductions and reorganizations. From there, then we will start putting our communication plan together and figure out what our next steps are from that. So those are my updates.
Great, thank you. And then we are going to be hearing on enrollment projections, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, so we have Jenna Wallace from RSP and Associates. She is joining us virtually and will take you through what it looks like for the enrollment of the district in the future.
Surprise, can you hear me?
Yes, we,
It's
Yeah.
not Jenna, it actually is Rob Schwartz. She was originally gonna do it, but I am stepping in. So many of you should be familiar with me. I've been working with your district since 2012-13. So it's been a long, very positive journey with you all as we've tried to figure out what does all of this mean for your district as it relates to enrollment, demographics, and development. Last night presented to West Fargo. I bring that up so you have context of just the work that we're doing in your region, but also because last night, if you look at their video, I had your presentation up and ready to roll. So I caught a little flack for that because you guys have some good competition between the two of you. And so as I dig into what you're going to hear tonight, this is a very detailed presentation. There's lots of really good information, lots of things that you can build on as you finish out your portrait of a graduate. You think about what you're going to do with your facilities and as it relates to your programming. And a huge shout out to Anne-Marie with her diligence in working with us in some of the changes in what grades are in certain buildings and how that plan, when it plays out, we have fully factored into what this 5-year forecast is. So that kind of gets us started. The report is broken out into these 5 sections. So the first part is enrollment and demographics. The second is population development. The third is enrollment projections. And then we have next steps. What do we do with this information? And then the appendix Not that it's not important. There's lots of really interesting storylines that you'll find in the appendix that build into the overall reach of what we're going to tell you tonight. So page 5 is your executive summary. And so we have a stable to slight increase in our enrollment over the next 5 years. When we look at what this might mean for our utilization, this starts to get into how can we effectively use space. And so on the surface, we have more space at the elementary, pretty tight at the middle school, and a little bit more at the high school. Again, depending on your lens of how you look at space, is it more than a number? Is there some things that we need to have factored into our capacity numbers that account for some of the nuances of the student experience? That's a conversation that's always ongoing year in and year out. Some of the variables that we look at that are impacting us, most certainly is the diversion, right? The flood diversion project that's completed in 2027 really starts to change some of our outlook of development in the Fargo Public Schools. We also know with live births that impacts our kindergarten student population, and we know there's changing demographics as we look at some of the millennials and Gen Zs as they start to have kids. Are they having as many? Are they waiting longer? And both of those are fewer kids and waiting longer is the general context of that group. So with this visual, there's lots of maps, and I'll just briefly explain the first map, and then you'll have that context to know what you're looking at in this report. We'll have the entire district in a smaller layout there towards the bottom center right of the maps. We're a very long district, right? So to put it into a presentation doesn't always look so nice when we're in a landscape mode. So we've zoomed into really the greater part of the Fargo city limits. That's where most of the action, most of the students are, but we don't want to forget those that are outside that zoomed in context. So each of the maps, this one is our 25-26 elementary boundary map. What our 26-27 elementary boundary map will look like. And then as we make the phase 2, what does that look like as we move forward in time? Then we have our secondary boundary map. And then a school feeder system that shows how, when you're in an elementary building, how do you move through the system based on where you reside, how you go into the middle school, and then on into the high school, where you see a color shading that's multicolored for an elementary building. That indicates that it's split between middle schools as it feeds in. And so you can see the colors coordinate between Discovery, Carl Ben, and Ben Franklin. We zoom in or we do our planning based on planning areas. And so all of this information on this map is just to help you see the context of the value of the work we've been doing with your district since 2012. Understanding what is actually happening in each of these planning areas. So think of your subdivision, apartment complex, mobile homes, townhomes, twin homes. We're monitoring a lot of information. It's factored into this statistical forecast model. So all of these variables, whether we look at census data, student data, city data, all of that's factored in. Want to also do a shout out to specifically the planning departments at Horace and Fargo, not Horace, but basically Fargo, with the work that they've done with us to help us understand the timing of the flood diversion, as we've seen changes in the lot sizes and the type of development, so the square footages of lots and houses. How does that impact what we look at for future units as we move forward? If you don't understand the math, page 15 plays this out in common language. So when our enrollment is over forecasted or under forecasted, come to page 15. Some of these variables are happening in different ways. I always try to remind everyone this is a social science. Think of this with your community that you live in, your subdivision, your apartment complex. When somebody moves out and they had a second grader and a fifth grader, when that person, next household moves in, will they have a second grader? Will they have a fifth grader? Or will they have no kids? Will it be entirely a different grade? That's what we're trying to forecast with the different data sets that we have. So again, thank you to those entities that have been providing us data since 2012. Live bursts. This is one of those moments where when we look at the county, we're trying to understand live bursts, and 5 years later, what impact does that have on our future kindergarten class? And so we have slightly fewer live bursts here as we baseline the 2024 live bursts, the right side of this graphic to the left side where we're up at over 2,600 live bursts. So what we do know is generally if live bursts decreases a little bit, that will relate in potentially having fewer kindergarten students 5 years later. Again, this is a general variable. We know that everybody that was born here 5 years ago may not be here. They may have moved out. We also know based on when they were born in that year, they may not be eligible to be in kindergarten. We also know a lot of people move into the community that were not here 5 years ago and they have school-age kids, right? So this is just one of those metrics that we must look at because this is something that's impacting the entire state of North Dakota and quite honestly, the entire United States. When we look at your past enrollment by grade, this gives you that context of where we've been and where we are right now with the number of students that we serve by grade. We're showing you here in this table from 15-16 through 25-26. Clearly, there were years when you go up the column, specifically at kindergarten, we had many more kindergarten students. This has been an impact in our enrollments that we've had to overcome as now smaller grades are entering our system, and we're starting to see larger grades that are senior classes exit our system. So one of the things that we look at with that same data is this cohort or regression of students as they move through your system. This is important to understand that if we had no more development and everybody just stayed here, we just had this movement of kids, what potentially might this look like as we look forward into the future? This becomes one of the scenarios that we look at. This visual provides you that change of students by grade for that current year. So if we look at 24-25 to 25-26, you can see most of the grades are black, meaning they grew from the previous year. But we do have some grades that are red. And when we go, which means a decrease, and if we go up those columns, we can see that there's some consistent grades that we see decreases. All of these trend-like variables are factored into our forecast down to the planning areas of where we see those changes. The other visual, as we move to page 19, that starts to impact what happens for the future enrollment. And one of these things I'm leaving you with, hey, do you believe that we're going to be stable to slight increases? Some of you might think, I think we're going to decline. Well, you're going to see some information here that offsets what I'm about to tell you on this top graphic. When I look at this graphic, the blue column represents the senior class. And when that's larger than the candy striped red, that means there's more seniors than incoming kindergarten students. That means we naturally would see a decline if nothing else was changing in our district. The bottom graphic gives you a visual of what's happening with our enrollments at each of the grade bands of elementary, middle school, and high school. Red is elementary, blue is middle school, green is high school. Another stopping point is our migration, right? So some of the things is we started to look at this data. Many districts started to say with changes in federal, maybe state policies with immigration, that's impacting what we see with migration. And so when you look at some of this information, we might not be seeing something that is something that we initially might have started with as a reasoning of enrollment would maybe decline more than what we potentially could see. What you're seeing up here is migration of students over the last 3 years by grade band of elementary, middle school, and high school. Simply stated with these red and green bars, orange represents students that were new to the district in that year that we were analyzing it. So 3 years of data. Green represents students that were here the previous year, but not there in the school year that we're analyzing it. So they left the district. for a lot of reasons. Sometimes they may still be in your district. Maybe they went to private, parochial, or homeschool, but in many cases, they probably are no longer in your community. What this helps us see is what's that trend of students that are new to the district and those that have left the district. For the last 2 years, we've had a positive migration. So that starts to point us towards our enrollment should be stable to increasing. And how does this augment the natural decline that we see with a larger senior class, smaller incoming kindergarten class? We also analyze out of district students. So when we geocode the students, do they reside in your district boundary? And so the bottom graphic gives us that overall outlook of what's happened over the last 5 years. So we roughly have about 200 students that don't live in our district boundaries that we're providing services. This can range from a lot of reasons, right? We have our McKinney-Vento students, so homeless kids, that wherever they live, we're letting them come into the buildings that they were at from the previous year. Some of these could be staff persons. Some of these where they might have two guardians, and so they have two addresses, and the address that we got for one of the guardians was outside the district, right? Lots of reasons for why that is. We're just monitoring that. That's factored into our projections. The next visuals are interesting for you to see how change is impacting the projection. So orange represents an increase, green is a decrease. Darker the orange, the greater the increase, darker green, the greater the decrease. This changes year to year. So just because you see orange areas, they're not always going to be orange. And here we're looking at K-12 enrollment. When you go to the appendix, it should be broken out by K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, and it changes. We showed the density. So when we geocode those students, where are those kids located? The darker the red, the greater the density. So again, this is all factored in, pushed into the forecasting to say if these areas are changing, how does it influence the number of students we'll serve? Overall, we have a mixed bag of things when we look at your enrollment. There's some variables that would say, hey, we should increase. And there's some others that say, yeah, we might decrease. So how does things get offset as we move into development? This is where it gets to be some interest. So we look at a few visuals to start the conversation. The green line represents census population as it relates to the census blocks that are within our school district boundaries. And so we have more people moving into the community. So that's a good thing. More people are in our school district boundary. The blue line represents our building activity. And so we have some reasonably good building activity that's happening. This includes single family, multifamily units. But then when we look at our red line, it doesn't necessarily statistically correlate with either more people in our district boundary or what we're seeing for building activity. There's a couple things to think about here. We have more existing units than we have new units that are being brought online. And so the power of our existing units offsets what we're seeing for new units. Typically, with new units, that's where we see families with students move to. So that's just a general rule, but this is that start point of what's happening with population, building activity, and our enrollments. When we look at yield rates based on the type of development, the orange bars represent single family, and we're showing you here from 16-17 through 25-26. The green represents the multifamily units. And so what you see here, we put some numbers up there. It represents for every 100 units, how many single family kids do we generate? And so back in 16-17, it was 36 single family, and you can see that's declined to 33. If we jump down to the bullet points, we built over 1,900 single family units in this time period. When we look at the green on the multifamily, it was 16 and now it's 15, but we built almost 3,400 multifamily units. So more units, lower yield rate, still generating a certain number of students, right? So this gives us an understanding of what we're getting for types of units, generally speaking. But then where I want you to understand it's different. No product's the same throughout our district. And based on our zones, we see quite a bit of difference of single family units here in this table, and we'll see that on the next table with multifamily. The bottom row gives us the district average. When you see orange shading, that's where we're more than 3 greater than that district average. When it's green, it's more than 3 lower than that district average. So it gives you kind of a understanding that, again, no product is the same throughout our system. So when I go back to this and you go, wow, 36 kids for every 100 units doesn't correlate to what we're seeing in each specific zone. That's why we have different number of kids in those zones. And we show you the same thing with multifamily. So kind of fascinating as you start to break this data into some of these facets of what it may mean. We also show you with each of the elementary zones, again, this takes into account all of our kids, but to those elementary zones, what type of units do we have that are single family versus multifamily? This helps us understand the number of students. And then with the student data, as we look at some of the student resources that may be needed based on some of the housing, and then as we tie this to some of the other variables that we can look at, this then starts to become a valuable tool to understand how can we better allocate our resources to our buildings based on a student need. We also, getting back to the model, we look at the age of our building inventory. And so it's color coded here. The older inventory is blue. And then as we radiate out to the newer inventory, it's going to be red. So you can see the bulk of our new inventory is to the south, right? As we move to Davies. No surprise, you guys live there, you see this. When we look at the values of homes that we tie back to the assessor data, this again, back to the model, the value of the homes, the age of the homes, the conditions, maybe just the feel of some of our older communities, those have an impact of what I would call a subdivision life cycle. How fast do they regreen? How long are they graying? So having fewer kids or having more kids. Where we look at where units are built, this map, again, we're zoomed out pretty far, but you can see the dots are all really concentrated for the most part on the south side of our district. From the information of driving your district, meeting with the city to understand some of the timing components of what we're seeing with how fast units can be built out, we created this visual that illustrates green where we're seeing current activity, where infrastructure is going in, yellow where it may be closer to 5 years, and then purple out closer to 10 years. This changes. If we lined up all of the maps that we've done back from 2012-13, the maps look a lot better now, but what we see for growth, it's changed as areas have built. So again, this is something why we monitor this annually. All of the information on the maps tied back to this table. And so this table provides you a name that we've given those planning areas. More often than not, once it's been platted, it follows what you see in the city, what type of development it is, whether it's current 5-year or 10 years, the existing units in that development, the number of units that have left to be built, and then what elementary attendance area does it correspond to. Again, a really rich data set. I hope you see this, that this is where this tool is really valuable in your planning efforts. As we also have to factor in, this is a short list, but we call it a regional project spotlight. What are the things that may influence what we see with employment, and more specifically for you, your enrollments? Who are we attracting in, and how does this factor into things? So obviously the Fargo growth plan of 2024, that changed some things of what we can expect for developments and how those developments will be serviced with infrastructure. So that's important. I keep mentioning the flood control infrastructure. That changes things, gives a lot of relief to people that are paying those astronomically high FEMA rates for their developments or their homes. So this is going to have some huge impacts on what we see for development, what the cost is to live in the district. So again, there's a lot of more positive what we see with the development piece. So how did these two things marry up and help us with our projections? And so this visual here on, I think, page 39. The red portion of the bars represents elementary. The blue is the middle school. The green is the high school. And so purple line represents the total district enrollments. And so when we look at this information, we're currently at about 11,250 students. That's our K-12 enrollments. And then we anticipate growing to over 11,000, almost 400 students. So a stable enrollment with some potential for some increases. Changes year to year. Sometimes it may oscillate where there's a little bit of an increase in one of those grade levels of elementary, middle school, or high school. But we see a pretty stable enrollment. That's a good thing. A good many of the districts we work with in North Dakota, we don't see stability or slight increases. They may see some declines. So all of this information here on page 40 is illustrated on page 41. And so when we take that information from that bar graph, it's broken out into each of the buildings. And so what we tried to list off in this visual is by building. You'll see some red font under those schools where we list off where there's a boundary change that starts to impact what that enrollment is beginning in the 26-27 school year. So let me explain a few things on this map so you can understand how we can use this in our planning efforts. So if we just look at Bennett, since we're alphabetical here, and we look at the middle row, and this will be for every building, the green fonts. When we geocode the students, so match them up to where they live, the address to where they live, we know the number of students in each of the last 4 school years where they live as a K-5 student. So that's the green fonts. And so when we look at that 25-26 school year, we see 614 K-5 students reside in that Bennett boundary. We know based on the school data the district provided us, the bottom row, blue fonts, attend, the number of K-5 students that are attending each of the buildings. So in the case of Bennett, there's 617. So just on those two numbers, you would say, hey, we got 3 more kids from one of the elementary buildings, because this is a closed system of a apple comparison of reside and attend. It's actually a little bit different. And this is why we provide you the top row, purple font, reside/attend. What that is do they actually reside and attend that boundary? So of Bennett, that 614, 603 reside and attend as K-5. That pickup of 14 students comes from one of the other elementary buildings. So this gives you the flow of kids. I don't know all of the reasons for the flow, but I do know they generally fit in this bucket. Is it programs that are located at Bennett or not located at Bennett? Does it get into things that might be what dual address we have? So a guardian, 2 different addresses. How does that fit with one parent versus the other? We got a prime address, but maybe the student is associated with the other guardian's address. So different reasons. But then as we move to the right, we give a forecast for enrollment for reside and attend. Ultimately, we want kids to go to the building based on where they reside, but there is some flexibility that has been happening with some of what I would call school choice, or where programs are or are not. We give you some shading to give some context to alert you to potential challenges in the district. So green shading means it's under 70% utilized. Orange shading means it's over 100% utilized from that district capacity. Let me explain these two numbers. Most districts we work with, they don't create what I would call a floor of capacity, meaning that is there a low threshold? And so we use this 70% because what we've seen in nearly the 25 years of doing this, that as we get to 70% and we have financial challenges, we might start seeing shared resources, right? So I might have an art teacher, a music teacher that's shared between buildings, counselors of sorts. And so those things start to maybe impact how we staff our buildings and what that experience might be for the students and for staff. Again, I don't know all of those details specific to your district, but we know that 70% is one of those things on the low side. Much like when we have over 100%, we start to run into challenges with more so even worse with our pickup drop-offs, but also with lunchroom, recess on the playgrounds, class sizes. We start to run into some challenges. And so are there some things that we may need to think about? That being said, when I look at a capacity number, it's not an absolute. So for instance, if we go down to Horace Mann, right? So we have some changes, and when that becomes a yet to be named new building, I believe, we're still associating it right now. So you can see the flow of kids, but it maybe name something different, right? Right now we have, with all of those kids being K-5 in 28, 29, that we would be over what that capacity is. Well, I suspect that maybe the capacity in the future for the new build might be a different capacity. So these are things that, again, when we look at the capacities, what the enrollment is, we have to dig a little bit deeper with some of the nuances of what capacity is, how that changes over time. And there's a lot of information on that page, but you'll see that with each of the buildings, how that's associated. And then how that looks at our secondary buildings, our middle schools and our high school. And then when we get to this page here on 44, this is where I'll kind of pause for a moment and let you understand that what we've also applied into these projections are these special situation buildings. So Dakota High School, Explorer Academy, our virtual academy, and our self-directed academy. Right. So we have some different things that are happening for programming pathways for students. I'm offering them some different opportunities beyond our brick and mortar. We factor that into our projections. The other thing that I think is valuable on page 44 is when we look at how does this relate to capacity. District-wide, we don't have a situation where we're underutilized across any of the grade bands. We do at specific buildings. And we also are not over capacity. So what this allows us is some flexibility when we look at where enrollment is, what we have for programs, how we define capacity. We have some opportunities to do some different things that might be reallocation of enrollment, better distribution of programs, maybe additional resources like support services, sensory rooms, right? We have a lot of different opportunities that if we don't have those available spaces, no flexibility. So that's one way you start to look at this. Again, observations, overall, really our growth is at the high school. We're seeing really declines that are at the elementary and middle school. And most of that's brought about with smaller grades that are working their way through at the lower levels. And so that's a huge factor in this. As we get to next steps, again, what you see in the projections are related to, hey, we start with our current boundary, we go into 26, 27, we have these transition years with where students go. And so we see the things changing if you just kind of go back and forth with what those changes are on the north side and south side. And then in 28, 29, when we get to that full boundary change, what does that look like? Again, just I leave you with this as I open up with questions. Really just study this. I know administration looks at this. I know Dr. Steiner's familiar with this type of report with his previous position. I think we did 2 different studies for that district. Use this in a way that helps guide some of your decision making. Use the data. The power is the data. And so as we annually look at this, there's some strategies that we've been working with administration on how you can use this information, but how can we better allocate resources, staffing, right? That's that middle column. There's some opportunities because, again, space is relative to how we want to use it and how it's being used. We still want to keep monitoring the speed of developments, the impact that live burst has on our future kindergarten classes. And of course, as this diversion becomes available, does that speed up what we see for developments when that is fully an executionable element in the development world? So with that, I'll stand for questions. So you guys want me to keep pushing on to the appendix because you're like, wow, this is fascinating. Let's talk more about those small storylines.
Thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate that input. And we'll take questions here in a minute, but I did want to let you know that after a rather lengthy process, we did select a name for the new Horace Mann Elementary School, and that is going to be Horace Mann. So you don't have to make any changes on your slides. So sticking with Horace Mann for that one. All right, does anybody have any questions for Rob? Really? Oh, Greg, okay.
I actually don't have any questions for Rob. I thought that was very thorough, and I always like getting presentations from like people who know and were familiar with the presentation, because like I could read it, beforehand, and I didn't know all the takeaways that I should be looking for. So I think, given how many slides, I think the synopsis was right on. But I do have questions for administration. So I guess maybe the first question is, how long has administration had to kind of look at this and digest it before today? I think probably like a month, maybe.
We've had preliminary versions for more than a month. And when we were talking about Horace Mann closing and what we would be doing in the transition year, RSP was kind enough to give us some preliminary estimates of those areas specifically, which were very helpful to us in the planning.
Cool. So I think maybe it's just kind of a general question for administration, knowing that like this is a lot of information. And I don't really have any reason to think it's not accurate information, but information without action is just kind of noise. And I'm wondering what, maybe some preliminary things you're going to do with this information now that you've actually had a while to digest it.
It's a good question. I would say this information, I know Missy used a great deal when developing the boundaries. Also, when we went out to talk with groups about why the Horace Mann area was the area we identified for the new schools. We've also used this as a basis for discussion on, I think that links to the long-range facilities plan about buildings that potentially could be closed down the road if their utilization isn't at a high enough percent, and if there's not building going on in that areas, which you can see beside the south part of the district, not a lot. I think the next things that we're going to do with this data is look at individual schools that might be pressed for space and make sure that we're not overloading those places. One thing they'll say is, well, we're going to have, let's say 1,500, I'm making that number up, in a school. We never have 1,500 kids show up in a school. And even when you get to the high school level, you have kids with off hours. So it's never that it's utilized at that 100% capacity. But we need to make sure that that doesn't mean we're raising class sizes beyond a reasonable amount. So I think like that's been some of the conversations we've had with our principals. And then how do we alleviate some of the areas that might have special programming, and is there special programming that could go to other schools to help open up more classrooms in some of the buildings that are full? So those have been just the initial conversations.
Dr. Gross and Missy are online. They're not here tonight, but they're online, and Missy does have her hand
Yeah,
up if
yep.
you want to call.
I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah. Missy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what I will say and just add on to what Corey said is that now the next step for myself is I will meet with all buildings individually regarding their numbers as we're looking at sections. Because we had a preliminary report, we had something to draft on, but now we're kind of tightening up what sections would look at by buildings so that we can let buildings get to work on our projections for next fall as we go forward. And then, of course, one of the pieces that we're really watching would be any grandfathering of petitions since we moved boundaries on both the south side and north side. And I think there was a nice explanation explaining what's the difference between residents in a boundary and then how we get students from outside of there. And we do have the petition process, but right now we are ready for next steps in the planning.
Okay, thank you. Do we have other questions or comments? Robin?
I'll make the same comment I make every year. I really appreciate the complexity of your report, Rob. I've watched it for quite a while. I think a lot of people, it's notable, it's important to note how you collaborate with the city and the planning. You know our community and our growth better than I do. And so I really respect the results. You have been consistent for all the years that FPS has worked with you. And again, you know about the diversion. So many things are taken into consideration, and sometimes we get, people think that we lead the city and develop ahead of the city. We very much partner with the city and the planners. And so just wanted to state that, and thank you again for your great work and solid presentation.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, so are you going to share a little bit from the appendix, or are we good with today? I think we're good. Okay. Okay, thank you, Rob. We really appreciate your input and the time you give to this and to us.
You bet. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Okay, it looks like we have a middle school schedule update, and you said that's from Dr. Gross, correct? Okay, so Dr. Gross, you're up.
Fantastic. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen and you can see the schedule.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. Well, I just wanted to take some time to share with the board and the community the work of the middle school task force. On the screen is the most current draft that they have worked on. That is something that the committee, the last time they were together.
Hey, Dr. Gross,
yes.
Can you minimize, or Bill, is that you? How do we get the big black box thing out of the way? Oh, it's moving. It's going away, kinda. That works. Well, I think if you minimize it, it might go away.
Let me try one more time. How about that?
That's better. Yes, we can see it all now. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I apologize. Just wanted to, again, this is the work of the middle school task force. It was a group of teachers and principals representing all 3 middle schools and each of the curricular areas. They met starting way back in March of 2023, and over the last 2 years have continued to work on this. The main purpose or the driver for the conversations was, how do we take a look at advisory and how do we make it as meaningful as possible for students? And then what and how would that impact our middle school schedule? Before the group began even talking about the schedule itself, they took the first few meetings to really do some research around what is a solid middle school philosophy. They also took some time to dig into what advisory should be. As a group, they and we came to 100% consensus on 2 philosophy documents that really drove us the rest of the way on what middle schools should be in Fargo and what advisory should be. Just to bring forward to this conversation, advisory was really defined in that work group as small group meetings with students and a trusted adult, intentional relationship building, and the opportunity to create a positive school community where students feel connected, supported, and empowered. The reason we needed to look at advisory is currently and today, advisory is the same length as every other class period in the middle school. That, according to the people who came together and feedback we've received from others, is too much time and too long. So this schedule really, if you look in the top row of any of those grade levels, 6th, 7th, or 8th, says it is a team time or advisory time that is shortened. The thought pattern is that would be approximately 18 to 20 minutes in duration. So definitely making it a shorter amount of time. And then the remaining time that you would save from shortening that one period would be distributed amongst the other periods during the day, making them a little bit longer and adding a little bit more time to lunch so that students had the opportunity to do so. When the task force did its work, each time they would come up with a draft, or we would come up with a draft, and then we would go back to our peer groups asking for feedback. And you'll notice this is draft 13, so that did happen 13 different times over the course of the working together. Each time we started the meetings with, okay, what did you hear? And we went around the table so that every curricular area had the opportunity to share. Every teacher or principal had the opportunity to share. Many times people did, and there were a few times that they passed because the draft didn't really change their curricular area much from one draft to the next. In our meeting in October, the committee came to, or the task force came to full consensus on this draft. So of the 15 members who were present, all 15 agreed that this would be the best draft or the best schedule moving forward. The reason we are sharing this with you tonight really connects back to EL 12, which is all around standards-based academic programs. And in there specifically is item 10 that says the superintendent shall not fail to notify the board of any additions, significant changes, or permanent eliminations of any department level academic programs. So there are some changes that are on this schedule if you compare and contrast it to what we are currently in. I'm going to quickly just go through it grade level by grade level, and then at the end pause for any questions that you might have for me. If you look at grade 6, again, advisory would be there. This is not the order of operations. So although all of the columns start with advisory, it may not start the day. It may end the day, or it may be in the middle. It's just that that is one of the periods of time for students. So that we would have advisory. Then there'd be a full period for students to be in some type of a music opportunity, either band, choir, or orchestra. And those opportunities would all be in sectionals where students who are learning their instrument would be grouped with other students who are learning the similar instruments so that they can really learn their viola, they can learn how to play the trumpet as they continue. One advantage that this has over our current schedule is currently music schedules sectionals are every other day, and large group band, choir, orchestra is every third day. This would be a student having that opportunity every day. So this would be all days that they would have that band, choir, or orchestra. If a student chose not to do that, they decide not to be in one of those 3 large group opportunities, we would have a general music opportunity for those students. So they would have a music course or class during their 6th grade opportunity. Then you'll see from there, the remaining courses or classes would be family and consumer science for a semester, art for a semester, world language and physical education would go on an every other day rotation. So students would have the opportunity to be in Phi-Ed every other day and a world language like survey like course every other day. They then would have language arts, math, science, and social studies. The reason that some of the courses are in red on the draft and some are in black font is the black font are courses that are there currently, so there are no changes to them. The red would be slight changes or fairly large changes to that course or class. And knowing that after tonight, we need to put together groups of teachers to really look at those opportunities to say, okay, how does that change the band, choir, orchestra in grade 6th grade, how does that change world language because it's moving from grade 7 to grade 6? And how does that change language arts because we're going from a 2-period section of language arts to 1 period of the day? In grade 7, again, advisory sometime during the day. Then during a period of time, students who want to be in band, choir, or orchestra would have that all every day for the entire year. And we would shift practice to sectionals to co-taught large groups. So if there was a large band, there would be multiple, probably 2 instructors in that band, so that during the course of the school year, one could be working in with a large number of the students. Another of that co-taught teacher could pull a small group aside to continue to do some sectional like opportunities. And then we would just really concentrate and use the expertise of the people as they co-teach that band, choir, or orchestra. If a student chose not to be in one of those music opportunities in grade 7, they then would be assigned to an art class and to a new project-based learning or a makers class, where students would have the opportunity to have some hands-on, minds-on activity opposite of that art. Then you'll see as we continue down that column, students would continue with a theater or drama course for a semester. They would continue with a STEM course for a semester. Then in the Phi-Ed piece, we would go every other day with health. Now, health education is taught in 7th grade currently. This would change it from 1 semester at a time to an every other day opportunity. And during the course of the meetings that we've had with the the Middle School Task Force, there were some conversations with our health teachers, and the preference was, please keep that in grade 7. We would prefer it to be a semester-based course, but if we could keep it in grade 7, an every other day piece would work. Then we have language arts, math, science, and social studies, similar to what we have right now. So again, the red is where we would need to get teachers together to design coursework or talk about how the changes to the schedule would impact their day and the students' day. In grade 8, there would be, again, advisory sometime during the school day. Then during a 2-period block of time, students would choose from electives. A student who chooses to be in band, choir, or orchestra, that would fill 2 of their 4 semesters during that block of time. And then they would have the opportunity to select from the remaining electives, and they would select 2 of them, either STEM, FACS, art, or another world language opportunity. Students who chose not to be in band, choir, or orchestra would then take 4 of those opportunities during that period of time. Then, like was mentioned previous in this meeting, there is another course that would be created, and that course would be a high school readiness course. It would be on an every other day rotation with physical education. This course is really and will be designed to incorporate some of the activities that is in a current careers course that is an elective right now in grade 8, but it would also then incorporate opportunities to say, what are our students going to need to know and be able to do once they go to high school? What are some of those study skill opportunities that we could provide for them? What are some of the ways that they can use their technology to their advantage so that we could help them as they move forward in that area? How can our counselors embed time into that class to help students with their rolling 4-year plan, which is part of the Choice Ready requirement? And how can we help kids really begin to think about what are some of those careers I might want to do, and how will that impact the courses that I select in high school and potentially down the road? So that course is new, but it incorporates many of the things that we are doing currently in an elective course and expanding upon that and giving that opportunity to all students. The nice thing that would be an every other day opportunity is students, it wouldn't be kind of I have it right before I go to high school. I have that embedded all the way through my 8th grade year on an every other day rotation. And then like grades 6, 7, and 8, there would be a period of language arts, math, science, and social studies. So this work, I just want to thank the members of the middle school task force. They were extremely dedicated in their effort. They were very, very professional. They spoke about their different curricular areas that they had, but they knew if we were going to make a change, some things would have to be slightly modified. And I'm very, very impressed by the professionalism of that group. I am very impressed that they stuck with this over a 2-year window of time. And it makes me very happy that we came to 100% consensus on this draft to make changes for the next school year. And what that does is it gets us back to that original plan of how can we make advisory better moving forward? How can we ensure that every student is in advisory and they're not pulled out for some other activity? So with that, I just wanted to share that with you and see if you had any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Gross. Allie, you have a question?
I do. Thank you for this. And first of all, thank you for the work on this. I know this has been a very long project that you've undertaken, and thank you to those that helped collaborate on this project as well. Question would be on those multiple music kiddos. So what it looks like for 6th, 7th, 8th, and if somebody is in, say, band and choir or orchestra and choir, how does that work? Is that still going to be an option for kids, or will they be limited to one music choice, this new schedule?
Thank you for that question. That was one of the things that we talked about, that we did not want to limit students and their opportunity to be both in band and choir or orchestra and choir, because we have many students who do that currently. What we will do is we'll use that one period of time. Music teachers will come together, and for example, in grade 7, there would be a band and a choir during that same period. Those teachers would determine when students would rotate from one to the other, so they could still be in both. So during that same time period, we would allow students who are in both to still experience that. As we think about time, currently, students who are in band, choir, orchestra are in their sectionals every other day, and in their large group every 3rd day. Since this is every day during the school year, even that change, I think, will allow students to give a really deep and rich opportunity in music and still be involved in both of them as we move forward.
Thank you for that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know that we heard a lot about sectionals as you guys were kind of floating through these new schedules. We had quite a few parents address the board, as well as multiple emails from folks. I do like that we would have that sectional opportunity on that daily basis, if you will, in that 6th grade. I think that gives kids a lot more time as they're developing those early on instrument skills. And I know that we're probably going to hear concerns about it going away from 7th and 8th grade, but based upon what you're telling us, I don't see any way to actually have those sectionals as they exist today. So it sounds like that was probably one of those ones that was a consensus or a give-get kind of situation. And then my last question is going to be around this new course in 8th grade. Now, this schedule would be expected to start for the next school year. I'm a little bit hesitant on a course that's not developed yet being an every other day option going into, the upcoming school year potentially. So can you talk a little bit more about that one for me?
Absolutely. So without trying to get too far in front of this meeting and this opportunity to share with the board, I have already met with Leanne Hansen, our Director of Standards-Based Instruction, and with Denise Jonas, our Director of CTE. And we've begun to lay out who are the individuals that we would invite to the table and what are those standards that we would want from that course, so that as soon as we are done with this meeting, we can begin those conversations. again, capitalizing on what we're already doing in that careers class. What are the things, the strong opportunities for kids that we want to continue? But then what are those other things that we want to embed into that course to really help our kids get ready for high school and beyond? And we have laid out those standards. We then next, after this meeting, want to bring the teachers together, share the successes of the careers course, talk about what is being done in other districts across the state. And I feel very comfortable in the semester we have remaining this school year and this summer that we would be ready for implementation next school year.
Okay. Any other, we're good? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Kristen?
Yeah, Dr. Gross, can you talk about the decision to make the high school readiness versus facts, like facts the elective, and the high school readiness the every other day class?
Yes, thank you for that question. As the group went through all 13 drafts, it really had wonderful conversations around what should be required and what then should be electives. Knowing that in the middle school philosophy, we want to make sure that all students have the opportunity to be exposed to certain courses and classes so that they can then make decisions down the road on what additional classes they want to take as electives. So that's why this plan is very careful to ensure all students are in music, all students are in art, facts, STEM, drama, health, once during that 3-year window of time. And then the opportunity for them to choose an area that they see of strong interest. So a student who is an 8th grader who wants more of STEM or facts or art or world language would be able to do that in this plan, even if they are in a band, a choir, or an orchestra, because they would still have the opportunity to choose 2 of those electives. And then the students who are not in those music opportunities in 8th grade would be in all of those because they would need to select those as their electives. So it really was, what can we ensure that all students are exposed to? What can we ensure that students have the opportunity to select and self-select into in the future? And then how can we help get our kids ready for that next step, which is high school and beyond?
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments about the middle school schedule? Greg?
Yeah, really quickly, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Gross and to all of the task force members, both past and present, because over 31 months, it wasn't just Dr. Gross plus 15. There was people cycling in and out, and 31 months, 13 drafts, 100% consensus. That's a minor miracle in my books. I just wanted to extend my thanks.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Okay, Allie has one more thing.
I'm sorry, it just popped in me. The world language component, because that's moving, is there a transition plan for those kiddos that would have been, say, 6th graders this year that would have now missed that world language opportunity, or is there, because I'm guessing it's different for 6th grade and 8th grade in terms of levels of world language?
It will be different, and that was one thing that we wrestled with very much, on how can we make sure that students have still an opportunity. So those students who would not have that as 7th graders next year would have an opportunity in grade 8 as an elective. But there's just 1 year of transition that we could not build in, that you're going to have it at least once before you have an opportunity to select it as an elective. We just could not come up with another way to make that happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gross. I appreciate your input on this and for sharing it with us this evening. And next we are going to move on to our consent agenda, and I will look for a motion. Robin?
I move approval of the consent agenda with the HC addendum.
We have a motion from Robin and a second from Jason. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. We are now moving to our business section, and our first item is the 2025 audit report that comes to us from the Planning Committee. So I'm going to turn that over to Chair Greg Clark.
All right. 140 something pages. I'd like to start on page 1. We'll just go one by one until
mind.
midnight. No, just kidding, obviously. This is a extremely dense document, and the good news is that we're honestly not even really like the main audience for it, kind of like it's more for kind of external purposes, but it's good for us to have and review and be able to check at the high levels, and it's really it kind of becomes easy to think it's just like we're just going to have our finance department check a box and email some stuff, but it's not that easy. It is a lot of work. Jackie and her team do a lot to get us to this point. And I'm going to give it over to her eventually, but I like to steal thunder. So I'm going to just direct us first to page 12. Really quickly, the middle paragraph, it's, the auditor's opinion is that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, ... in accordance with good accounting principles. And then skip all the way to page 143, because the good stuff's always at the end. So on this page, you'll see, really, this is what I care about. The auditor's report is unmodified in accounting terms. That just means it's a clean audit. They don't have to have any major marks against it or have any caveats to their report. So unmodified, that's absolutely what we want to see. But even further than that, we see that the auditors did not identify any material weaknesses, and they did not identify any significant deficiencies. That is, like I said earlier, that's not the product of just checking some boxes. I have seen in other organizations plenty of weaknesses or deficiencies, and they're not necessarily like really huge problems. They maybe just be really kind of tiny things. Here's where you can improve. And so even a list of deficiencies or weaknesses aren't even necessarily sounding an alarm. We have none. And that is very, very good work that I'm very appreciative for our team. So thank you to Jackie and your team again. And then if there's anything else you want to draw our attention to, please.
Nothing? He covered it all?
No, unless we want to get into some real good details, and I want to do that at this point in time.
Okay. How about Greg, could you make a motion? Do you have it in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, there you go. Oh, there you go.
All right. I move that we accept and file the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year June 30th, 2025, and forward copies to the appropriate agencies as requested.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Greg and a second from Robin. Do we have any discussion or questions? All right, Nikki? Okay, go ahead, Robin.
Jackie, how many years in a row has your team received auditing awards for accuracy?
You ask me this every year, and I don't have the actual detail, but it is over 20 years.
Yeah. So if I ask you every year,
You would think I would remember to
Yeah.
get that information for you, and I don't.
thank you. But that really speaks to the quality of your work and your team, and that's I appreciate that. So thank you. It's worth highlighting.
Any other comments or questions? Nikki?
That was kind of my same thing. So Robin got to the punch before I did, but I want to thank you because it is a point of pride that you and your team have done such a wonderful job for so long. I was excited to see it come, and like Greg, I'm excited at the unmodified as well. And it just really speaks highly of the work that you guys do. Thank you.
And Jackie, didn't you say this was the least amount of days that they were on site ever that we've had?
It was, auditing has changed a little bit. A lot can be done, it's very analytical, actually, and a lot can be done ahead of time. And for a district our size, I was pleasantly surprised. My team, as well as many other departments, because a financial audit is not just finances, it is internal controls and everything else. We were getting information ahead of time, and just it went extremely smooth this year. So I want to thank everyone in the district that was involved.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Robin?
One quick question. We have changed auditing auditors in the last couple of years. I assume that our current auditing team is constructive to work with. And not that they need to be your friends, but they're your helpers. It seems like that has been going well.
They have been a great partner
Right.
in the process and throughout the year with assisting us. This year, there was a large change that we had to implement, and they are instrumental in answering questions and helping my team figure out the correct answers and how to account for all of these very complicated items that we have to.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, Anne Marie, can you please call the roll?
Berkland.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Day.
Yes.
Gullickson.
Yes.
Jason Nelson.
Yes.
Kristen Nelson.
Yes.
Robin Nelson.
Yes.
Ollenberger.
Yes.
Christensen Meinier.
Yes, and that motion passes 9-0. Next up on our business is Memo 66, award of bid package number 1 for Horace Mann Elementary School. I see, James, that you're at the microphone and your name is first on the list there, so I'm going to let you take it over.
I'm ready to go. Before you, good evening, everyone. Before you, you have Board Memo 66 regarding bid package number 1, precast wall panels for the new Horace Mann Elementary School. Our construction manager, Kraus Anderson, received 3 bids for this one scope of work. After review and proper vetting, the low bidder was identified as Terracon. You are asked to approve the bids and this GMP for the construction manager. So the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, includes the bid amount as well as general conditions, allowances, and soft costs for the scope of work that we'd be approving here. As future bid packages are received and approved, we would increase the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, accordingly until the final bid package is received for the project. Right now, that's planned for May 2026. It's possible, depending on how some things go, that we may add another bid package towards the end. It just depends on how design development goes. But as of right now, that's the plan. You'll see a table that has the full project budget included that just shows what the plan is as far as this bid package and that value that's included, as well as bid packages 2 through 4. And there's a line item for the soft costs that gets us to the total budget of $45 million, which is still on track and looking really positive. We continuously estimate the project as we go through the different design development phases of the project, and so far we've been on track, which is really positive and feeling good about where this project is today. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Okay, thank you. Robin?
I will make a motion to approve bid package number 1, precast wall panels, bid from Terracon, and establish a guaranteed maximum price in the amount of $5,866,918, and authorize Kraus Anderson to proceed with the precast scope of work for the Horace Mann Elementary School project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Robin and a second from Ally. Any discussion or questions? Nothing? Okay, great. Thank you, James. And Anne Marie, can you call the roll?
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Christensen Meinier.
Yes. And that motion also passes 9-0. All right, next we are moving on to memo number 67, 2026-27 school calendar change. And I'm going to turn over to Dr. Steiner for this.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, as we've shared with the board, next year we will be transitioning from Power School, our current school information system, to Infinite Campus. That is a state requirement, so not something that we had a choice in. With that, we still don't necessarily know what training is going to look like. And instead of potentially waiting until that information is crystal clear, which could be well into the spring potentially, we asked for the board to consider some early release days, and to do those knowing that some of our time that we meet before the school year is going to end up moving to Infinite Campus training. And so that means some of the required trainings that we still have to do that is required by the state, or some that are required by the district, may need to be moved. We have also identified that there are times when we hire new staff throughout the year and we could use time for additional trainings. Right now, we don't necessarily have time built in where we can just train paraprofessionals, for example. By approving these days, we would then be able to, one, be more flexible with our Infinite Campus training, not only prior to the school year, but in real time during the school year, because you all know anytime you adopt a new system, there will be glitches when you start, but there will be glitches throughout, no matter the best laid plans. And so what we are asking is on September 16th, October 21st, December 9th, and February 10th, to give us permission to adjust the calendar, and we would do early release on those days. And then we gave you kind of 5 general areas that we would consider for training. I would say this list is not exclusive. It is not only these things, but obviously Infinite Campus training. And that's not only like when we start the year, we set up grade books, we deal with attendance, but it's also when we get to the point when we're ready to store grades and we're ready to report out grades. It is things of like, how do we make sure we get parents access to see those things, like all these different elements. And that's not even considering the behind the scenes things when we enroll families and enroll students. Another one is safety training. I don't think there's ever a lack of need for us to engage and continue to engage safety training and making sure our buildings are secure. I love the fact that now when we hire new staff, we actually will be able to train them in those moments. They get the opportunity to go through those protocols with Jeff's team when they're doing orientation, but here they would be able to be in the building with the people that are doing that work. We know there's always a need for more catalyst training for teachers and paraprofessionals. Just in my observations throughout the district, I've seen really great things with catalyst implementation. We always are dealing with complex behaviors. Doesn't matter what system or where you're at. And I think anytime we can get people together to talk through of what has worked in the past and what could work in the future is an important thing. This year, especially at Missy's level, we have added paras to riding the buses, which I think our principals would tell you has drastically reduced the amount of referrals that we're seeing. We have done it at the high school and middle school when there's been what we call hot buses, where there are significant issues. We found right away that we put them on the buses and we didn't necessarily have really clear expectations what that would look like. So our paras did a wonderful job of kind of creating their job description. But we have found that that is an ongoing thing because there are things they ask us and we're like, oh, and even things like watching a video of a situation and being able to give them that opportunity to see that video and say, how would we intervene? How would we work through this? How does this link to our procedures and policies in Fargo schools? So that's one. And then the other part that I can tell you there, I don't think there's a teacher in the world who would tell you more time to talk with their peers, to work with their peers, more time to just plan lessons. So let's say we come to those magic days and we don't necessarily have something planned. We will have something that our teachers can use to continue to advance the good work they're doing with kids. And just giving them that autonomy to work and figure out some of those things as well. So I think there was a survey done, and I would probably lean on the colleagues that were here before me, but they did survey parents multiple years ago on if they would do it in the morning or the afternoon, and it was fairly significant results to say, don't do the morning. We can navigate the afternoon. Am I right on that, Anne Marie?
It was part of focus groups that we did a number of years ago. So we did pick Wednesdays based upon the data that we got back from that.
So if that's the reason you have an early dismissal as our recommendation and not a late start. So
Thank you. Can I get a motion from someone, please? Melissa?
Yeah, I move that the board approve 4 early dismissal days during the 26-27 school year on September 16th, October 21st, December 9th, and February 10th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Melissa and a second from Ally. Is there any discussion or questions? Robin?
Typically, we go through the calendar billing process, and we have a committee to do that. Was that team consulted, and were our teachers consulted through this?
I would say the main conversations of Laura and I had in our one-to-one, and we did talk, her and I and others, about do we want to bring the whole calendar committee group back together. That group is also changes, like Dr. Gross talked about the middle school. Because we weren't changing any of the days of our calendar, we didn't think it needed to go through that entire process. And I will say, like, I did have informal conversation with multiple groups. We didn't have anybody, I think people are really, truly, genuinely concerned about what Infinite Campus will look like in the timeline. And so just, there was a little bit of like, I can breathe a little bit, because we'll have the opportunity to react to that in real time. If it would have changed days, we would have absolutely went to the calendar committee.
Yeah, Melissa?
I just have one question because Dr. Steiner spoke so positively about the value of what these early out days could do. And I was just wondering if you envision this something going forward that we would always have embedded training for that's specific for staff.
So I'll say two things on that. I'll give you the FPS answer, which is I think there's people that we want to talk to and make sure that it brings value to students and value to our teachers. So I would say I wouldn't want to be the one to make that decision. I would want to talk with those that are most affected and say, how do we make sure this time is absolutely valuable and will impact student learning? Coming from district that did it, I saw great value in it. And I would love to see the conversation about this being a long-term potential, long-term thing with our calendar.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, Anne Marie, can you call the roll, please?
Day?
Yes.
Gullickson?
Yes.
Jason Nelson?
Yes.
Kristen Nelson?
Yes.
Robin Nelson?
Yes.
Olenberger?
Yes.
Berkland?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Christensen Minear?
Yes, and that motion passes 9-0. And next, we come to Memo 68, Permanent and Perpetual Easement at South High School, and I will turn to Ms. Brandner for this.
Yep, you have in front of you Memo 68 requesting a permanent and perpetual easement for the city of Fargo. This is for the south 2 feet of the Fargo South property. So if you think of right where 17th Avenue runs south of Fargo South, a lot of souths in there, we're talking about just those 2 feet north of that. So the 2 feet, really what we're doing with the perpetual easement, or what the city proposes to do with the perpetual easement, is go through road repair within the summer of 2027, improving access to Fargo South and increasing the length or the width of the walkway. Ultimately, this will benefit us as a district, so I would encourage you to support this permanent and perpetual easement.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please? Nikki?
I move that we authorize the execution of the permanent easement with the city of Fargo.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Nikki and a second from Namal. Any discussion? Okay, well, Namal said it too. Do you want me, did you write one down, Anne Marie?
For what?
Who seconded it?
You said Jason, so I went with Jason.
Okay.
Or Jason.
I said Namal.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
But Jason also said it.
Sorry. I had Jason. I will go with them all.
Got it. Okay. Any question or discussion? No? Okay. Can you call the roll, please?
Gullickson?
Yes.
Jason Nelson?
Yes.
Kristen Nelson?
Yes.
Robin Nelson?
Yes.
Olenberger?
Yes.
Brooklyn,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Christensen Minor.
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Okay, moving on to our board reports. Nikki, can I start with you?
You bet. December 16th and December 17th, I had the pleasure and honor of visiting Hawthorne and Claire Barton as my liaisons. And Centennial will be upcoming, looks like it's going to be next week. But had a wonderful time at those two buildings, very much a family feel. They just really had just really a good vibe in those buildings. They work together well. They're smaller buildings. They know all the kids. They know each other. They work together. It just was I just felt really good about it. And then CEA met in December on the 19th and will be meeting again next week. And the Health Insurance Committee that I am on will also reconvene next week after the holidays.
Great, thank you. Namal?
Just as she mentioned, CEA met in December, then attended a planning committee and negotiations, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Yeah, I attended my committees and then also got a tour of Jefferson Elementary last week. And then I was invited to sit in on an interview with 3 others for a short 15-minute portion interview for North Dakota Principal of the Year for Beth Olson. On that panel with me was one of the PBTs from the school, Victoria Johnson, a parent. One thing I told Beth is if she doesn't win, it's their loss. It's truly, it was great to see the impact that she's having on kids, staff, and parents there. So we have a great principal there.
Great, thank you. Allie?
Yes, so I had a recent opportunity to be the mystery reader in Mrs. Medberry's 3rd grade class, which is always so much fun. One of my clues included that I was a former Longfellow Lions in the 1900s. So the kids thought that was pretty great.
Nice.
However, my daughter did guess right away that was me, and so I thought it was being tricky. Anyways, handled a couple different leave bank requests, attended committee meetings, and now that I'm officially able to drive and leave my house again, I am getting my liaison visits all scheduled up here for being able to get out and into our buildings again. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Kristen?
Not a whole lot to report. We are working on FYI, Fargo Youth Initiative, and we are, with the help of Robin and Boys and Girls Club and City of Fargo, has helped us in this transition. I think FYI is going to be in a better place than it ever was before, and our learners who are going to take part in that are really going to have some fantastic opportunities coming up to engage civically, both at the city, park board, county level. And so I'm really excited to see how that's going to go.
Nice, thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, last week negotiations met and we started talking about our matrix and how we calculate costs of the matrix and sort of the mostly weaknesses, but some of the strengths of the matrix too. And then I have just been trying to set up my liaison visit, so I don't have much else to report.
Thank you. Greg?
I attended the legislator information session. I thought that went really well, and I've gotten a lot of unsolicited feedback from various parties about it, and everyone else said it went really well, so I'm very excited. Thank you to Robin and GAC for making that happen. On the 17th of December, I attended FPS Foundation meeting. That went great. We got, man, I love all the auditing reports lately. FPS, theirs was unmodified. They had some other stuff, but it was unmodified. So overall, great. CEA committee met in December. Planning met last week. Earlier this week, I attended governance, had my one-on-one with Dr. Steiner, and last week I met with FEA President Laura sitting over there.
Okay, Robin.
It's been a month, hasn't it, since we met last?
Yes.
So yeah, I forgot about the legislative breakfast or info sessions. And so that occurred. Thank you to everybody that attended. I too, and as everybody else has mentioned, very positive feedback. Our subsequent Governmental Affairs Committee meeting, we debriefed that. And then nothing outside of regular committee attendance.
Great, thank you. So for my report, I'll share that in December, I did have my monthly one-on-one with Dr. Steiner. I too attended the legislative meeting and want to send a thank you to Robin and Dr. Steiner and Catherine for making that happen. It was very, very well organized. I was able to attend the ECSE breakfast shortly before break started. That's a really great way to start out your day with a lovely breakfast buffet and chatting with early childhood teachers. Governance met yesterday, and I'll share just a couple things from that meeting. We are continuing to work on a policy regarding notifying staff of positions that might be reclassified. And we also approved a change to our board travel policy related to attending national conferences. Our current practice allows board members to go in years 1, 2, and 3 of their term, and we're moving that to be years 1 and 3 in an effort to reduce spending. So that will show up on a consent agenda in the future for full board approval. Another thing, make sure you please have marked on your calendars Thursday, February 26th from 8:30 a.m. to noon for a work session. We talked about that at Governance 2. The topics will include strategic planning, budget reductions, and reorganization, and the mill levy vote. So please make sure that you have that marked. And that is all I have for my report. Our next meeting is January 27th. It is 7:10, and this meeting is now adjourned.